I didn't really take God too seriously in my life until I had an entire neighborhood just, even a couple streets down, even, call both the police and call the ambulance on me. Both of them. I had completely lost my mind during a drug trip, and yeah, basically, yeah, if you're a kid and you're watching this, stay away from drugs because dude, this story, if this doesn't change your perspective on drugs, I don't know what will. So, when I was like 18, 19, 20, I'd be experimenting with all sorts of drugs. I used to go to school and I would be high. I would go everywhere with my friends, parties, clubbing, and I would be on some sort of drug. Everyone who knew me, they knew, oh yeah, that's Brayden. Like he gets high nearly everywhere he goes. That was pretty much just my entire thing. Now, at the time, I had these two friends named, I'll call them Billy and Bob just for the sake of the story. Now, Billy and Bob, they were two good friends of mine, and we would always go to Bob's place and we'd be smoking weed and just, having fun and just watching movies, playing games, eating a bunch of crappy food, all that kind of sort of stuff. So yeah, that was kind of what life looked like for a couple months after high school had finished. We'd just be hanging out, doing that quite often. But one day, we decided we wanted to kick it up a notch. So, my friend Billy had just tried LSD for the first time not long ago, and he was hooked. He loved it, he loved it, he loved it. Now, my friend Bob, he had never tried it, so he was interested in trying it, and I'm over here. I had tried it before multiple times. I was a pretty experienced user, and I would always do a lot more than I should, and that's what really went wrong with this story. I always used to be one of those people that thought, oh yeah, I've heard of bad trips, but that only happens to like mentally ill people and people that actually have problems in their life. I was always someone that would do the most of anything. Nothing would ever go wrong. I'd have the best times ever. I had never had a bad high, not even on like smoking weed or on acid before this as well. I had never had a bad high. So I just assumed I never would. That's just, kind of just what my thought process was. So, anyways, we decided we wanted to go to Billy's house because Billy's house was the perfect view for this. A little thing about Billy's house was he lived on this really big mountain and he had this balcony. You could see like the power lines like far below when you're on this balcony. It was like a really high up balcony. You could see everything. It was the best view in the world. So we just thought, yeah, this would be the best place to do it. So we grab all our supplies, we buy some food, we get prepared just to have a very good time. So what our plan was, we would show up at night, we would just smoke some weed and hang out for a bit, and then would go to sleep and would wake up at 5 in the morning, and then we would drop the acid. That was the original plan, but then it kind of backfired because it's about 1 or 2 in the morning and we're still up just cracking jokes and having fun, just smoking weed. And then one of us was just like, oh crap, we're supposed to be up in a couple hours to do the acid. And then we were like, oh no. So we all kind of just went to bed just to, get a bit of sleep before we did this, but not me. I actually stayed awake. I've always been someone that can function totally fine on absolutely no sleep for an entire day, maybe even 2 if I really pushed it. So I just decided, I can't be bothered going to sleep for a couple hours, I'd rather just wait. So it hits about 5 in the morning and I go to wake up all my friends and I'm just like, yo guys, it's time. So everyone just gets up all excited, we make ourselves some coffee, just preparing for what was about to be the worst time of my entire life. So we dropped the acid, my friend Billy and I, but Bob, however, this is crucial by the way. Bob not doing this is probably the reason I'm alive today. So props to you, Bob, for not doing that acid. Like, that's the only reason I'm alive. And of course, God saving my life too in this whole ordeal, which is just insane. It's genuinely crazy. So yeah, Billy, he takes 1 tab of acid. Me, I take 3 tabs of acid. I had done this before and had pretty good results, so I was feeling fine to do this. But yeah, we're kind of just having the come up experience, and this is, we're getting a bit giggly, we're laughing, it's like, yeah, we're starting to feel it. And then I decide to go onto the balcony with my buddy Billy, and we both decide to smoke a cone, some weed, just so we can experience the high a bit more and just ease into it more and just feel the effects of it. We'd always just combine the two, I suppose. So after I had done this and I'd come back inside and I'm just seeing the sun come up, my friend actually had to tell me this part because I don't even remember this part. I remember some of it, but not explicit details. The sun was starting to come up, and as soon as I saw the sun, this is what my friend told me, that's when it all went wrong. Pretty much right after I'd smoked weed and the sun was starting to come up, I just look outside and I just start laughing. Now, this isn't normal laughter. This is laughter that is becoming uncontrollable and I'm not able to stop. You know when something's just really, really funny and it's like, and then it eventually just dies down and it's no longer as funny as it was? I thought it was kind of like that in the moment, but then I realized, oh wait, I can't stop. I actually can't stop. So I'm just laughing. I'm like exerting my vocal cords to the maximum they can go as well, by the way. Like, just shouting, screaming with laughter. Now, my friend Billy, his brother was home because they lived together. And he's just telling me, shh, Brayden, be quiet, because because his brother's home, doesn't want to be woken up, all that stuff. But at this point, I think it's a bit too late for that. And it just gets worse and worse from this point on. There were times where I don't even really remember the details between this, by the way. I would go outside and I just started ranting and raving at the top of my lungs. Like, I was pretty much shouting and screaming. At this point, it was a full-blown psychotic break. That's the best way I can explain it. The best way I can actually explain it to you is I felt like I was a puppet, and there was a puppet master controlling my every action, and I couldn't do a thing about it. It was genuinely the worst thing ever, just being controlled by something that isn't yourself. So yeah, anyways, I'm just outside and I'm just ranting, raving, screaming at the top of my lungs at I think 7 in the morning at this point. So yeah, it's not looking pretty good. My friends keep trying to usher me inside and get me inside, and they eventually just get me inside, but then this is where it gets worse and worse. I heard this random thing just start laughing at me. I couldn't actually see what it was, but I could hear it, and it wasn't any of my friends. There was just something laughing at me in this weird voice, and I couldn't tell what actually that was, but I still don't know to this day, but I remember it vividly. But I'm just inside trying to figure out what this thing laughing at me is, and at this point, I'm kind of just on the floor, and I'm going back in and out, trying to go back in and out on the balcony. I remember, like, this is the real peak of it almost. I felt like the best way to explain it is, I don't know if other drugs are like this, but I felt like I had become the pinnacle, if you will, the peak of the entire universe. I felt like I was everything and that everything was me. I felt so connected with everything and I felt like I was the very peak of that. So I had this random idea that when I was shouting and raving, that I was speaking the universe just out of its very existence, which was crazy, really. I don't know what it was, but I'm just shouting and yelling and I hear these sirens going off, and I thought I was truly speaking the universe out of existence. I don't know how to explain that. It was absolutely crazy, and every single time my friends would be speaking to me, they were like trying to tell me to stop, but in my mind, they were just telling me to stop because they didn't want me to speak the universe out of existence, because they too could experience it and feel it, or at least that's what I was thinking at the time. So anyways, a bit of time just flies by, and I'm just bouncing between the balcony and going just inside the house. I don't really remember too many of the things between this. It was just a bunch of ranting and raving for such a long, long time. But then it got to a point where I'm just inside and I was on the floor, and then all of a sudden, I'm just in this place where I believed I had truly died. I was on the floor, I was really sweaty, and I would like rub my head, and then I would look at my hand and I would see blood. And then, you know, when you've lost your voice from shouting or screaming, or people who sing, sometimes you can lose your voice, and I could feel that I'd lost my voice, and I don't know what it was, but it had this warm, like, feeling to it, like there was blood in my throat. There actually wasn't. There was nothing wrong with me, but I'd wipe my head, see the blood, felt like I had blood in my throat. Something convinced me that I had actually died. I don't know why, but I was so convinced I was dead that I look around the room and I'm just like, did I seriously choose the wrong effing religion? And I'm seeing all of these random people just in the room. I don't even think the people were there. They were not there at all. And they're just like looking at me and they're just going like, shh, it's all okay. Don't worry. It's all going to be okay. Well, I'm just going, did I seriously choose the wrong effing religion? I'm just going on and on about this, and they're just promising me that it's all about to get better and there's nothing to worry about. So I'm just like, oh, okay, I trust that. But then everything just gets worse and worse and worse. The laughter gets worse. I start getting mocked by these things even more. And I was like, oh, it's not getting better, it's actually getting worse. I was starting to realize that it was getting worse. And then they start telling me again that it's all just going to be okay, but then it gets worse. And it just kept going on in this cycle, in this loop, and it just wouldn't stop. I was being totally and utterly tormented. I remember I even shouted out, this is effing torture. I just shouted that out at the top of my lungs, just rolling around on the floor, thinking all the stuff going on around me is just real, you know? Like, it was real. It was genuinely so real at the time that I just can't forget that day. I can't forget that moment. But anyways, it comes to a point where I realize it's just going to get worse and worse and worse, and that I'm in a cycle. You know, for the first like 1 or 2 moments of being promised it would get better, I kind of believed it. But then after a while, when it just doesn't stop and it just keeps getting worse, and you keep being told it's going to get better, you start to realize that whatever this is, you're being lied to. And yeah, I was being tormented. I was stuck in this cycle forever, and I knew I couldn't get out of it. So I finally had cracked. I realized I was actually experiencing hell. I experienced hell is the best way to put it. And at one point, I heard this voice just tell me, if you jump, it'll all be over. So, hearing this voice tell me to jump and that it'll all be over, I quickly get up to my feet, and this is what my friends told me, because I actually don't remember this part, by the way. I just start fully sprinting at the window to get to the balcony, because the way his house worked was there wasn't actually a door to get to this balcony. It was actually just a window, and we had to climb in and out of the window. So I'm just running and booking it straight at this window, and I'm convinced that I have to jump off. I just keep shouting, I'm going to effing jump to make this all stop. And then it was at that moment when I'm running just at the window that my friend Bob, who's watching this whole thing completely stone cold sober as well, by the way. Actually, I think he smoked a little bit, but he wasn't on what me or Billy were on. So yeah, Bob, he actually grabs me right before I get out the window, and then Billy, he also grabs me, and this is a part that I actually remember. I remember them vividly saying this while I'm just hearing sirens going on outside. They're just going, we have to knock him out. We actually have to knock him out. I just keep hearing this over and over, and they gagged me. And according to them, I actually started strangling them, punching them, doing anything I could to escape them. Luckily, both of them are pretty much bigger than me. I'm like, 5'7", maybe 5'8" on a good day, I don't know. But these guys are past 6 foot, and they're stronger than me. So luckily, they were actually able to hold me down and just keep me from escaping this thing. And I'm just doing all of this crazy, psychotic, insane stuff to them. But then around a couple minutes later, I don't know what it was, but like the police and the ambulance showed up just out of nowhere. These sirens I was hearing outside, thinking the world was ending, was just the police and the ambulance on the way, because what I got told was there were startling numerous amounts of calls coming from the area about someone ranting and raving just outside. So yeah, the police, the first responders, the ambulance, they all come inside and they're all just kind of watching me because I'm still going a little bit crazy. I'm still ranting and raving, and at this point I was saying some insanely disgusting, foul, awful stuff to the people in the room with me. I can't repeat what it was that I was saying, but this is stuff that no human should ever have come out of their mouth. It was genuinely terrible. I remember snippets of it. I don't remember most of it. My friends actually had to tell me some of it. But then, in fact, it was actually so bad that literally just early last year, my friend actually randomly messaged me out of the blue and he told me some other stuff that I had said, but he didn't want to tell me about what I'd said at the time because he didn't want me to just think, wow. It was really, really bad. So yeah, these first responders are all inside the building, and instead of doing really anything about the situation, this actually really upset me. I remember this at the time. One of the women inside the building was just like, get your phone out and record him and show him how much of a dick he's being. Now, in my mind, I don't think any first responder should ever do this as someone that's clearly going through a psychotic break from drugs. I think that was the worst possible thing, and I'm going to be honest, I think this was actually a God moment, because if that got recorded, I don't think any of my friends would have recorded anyway, but my friends both said they didn't record anything, and that both of their phones actually happened to be dead at the time anyway, so they couldn't even if they wanted to. So yeah, that's genuinely so awesome. If there were videos of that, I think that would be awful. But then again, I'm kind of curious to see what it was like. But no, I'm glad they didn't record anything. I don't think they would have anyway. But yeah, the police, the first responders, they're just kind of watching me go crazy. I'm going in and out of these cycles and loops of just ranting, raving, and being convinced that I'm in hell and everyone there is in hell with me and there's no escape and that I'm totally doomed and done for. So while this is just happening, I eventually get taken downstairs. I'm carried and picked up by these police people. I actually got sedated, by the way. They sedated me and they put me in the back of a police car. I remember this part. I don't actually remember how they sedated me. I just remember feeling a sedative and just falling asleep in the back of this police car, just going absolutely crazy. And then the next thing I remember is I'm inside of the hospital on a wheelchair, and when I just came back to my senses, I was still pretty much on acid, but I was a little more calmed down. I was, I had my faculties restored to me. I could, think, eat, breathe, whatever I wanted to do. I was in control of my body again. The very first thing I did was start bawling my eyes out, crying, and I just said, call my mum. Like, my first thought was I needed to call my mum and just tell her everything that had happened, in which I did, which was pretty bad. They actually had no clue I was doing drugs at the time. They suspected I was, because I'm from a Christian household, so it's pretty bad to be doing drugs and all that, so it was just easier for me to hide it than deal with that disappointment and shame that I would feel knowing that they knew about it. So I just kept it from them, and I just told them everything. They were obviously very disappointed and they were very shocked. So yeah, it was just total craziness. But then I remember I requested for a doctor because, I don't know, I think this was during when I was still a bit manic. I said I need a doctor because I'm bleeding. But then when I came back to my reality, and I wanted to check out. They told me I couldn't leave because I requested to see a doctor. So I told the person just at the reception, oh, no, I don't need a doctor. I don't need a doctor. So they actually just let me go. And when I came outside, my friend from my town who drove 1 hour, we'll call him Steve. Steve rocks up, hearing about this whole thing. Steve was such a good guy for this as well, because I'm just at this hospital, both my friends back at their crib, just pondering and just wondering what happened. But yeah, they called up my friend Steve, our mutual friend Steve, and he came and he picked me up. He drove more than an hour just to come and get me at 7 o'clock, or in fact, no, I think it was like the afternoon at this point. But I respect that so much. I just walk outside and my friend's car is just right there, and we're just debriefing the whole thing, just in total shock. I return to my friend's house real quick just to pick up all of my stuff, and then I leave, and I vowed to never ever take drugs that day, because if I'm going to be honest, I'm going to attribute this to the fact that I have a family that would pray for me every single day. I had praying grandparents. It's part of the family, you know. I call it a generational blessing. Just a family that's been on fire for God for such a long time, seeing the breakthrough of what God has done in their lives. And, you know, because my grandfather, he used to travel the world. He was a minister. He was an evangelist, would go everywhere and just talk about Jesus. He wrote many books, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I had a family that would be praying for me all the time, praying for the whole family, really. So I attribute the fact that I have great friends and the fact that I have a praying family, that it really just came through for me, and it really just, you know, I think God actually saved my life that day. My friends saved my life, but I think that was because of God. I think the narrative of the story was that God actually allowed for that to happen, because I had actually been praying for such a long, long time, because I wanted to stop just doing drugs. I wanted to stop, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it because I just found it too much fun. But I wasn't really taking God seriously. I didn't have a sense of the urgency of what God has for my life, you know, for every one of us. God has something incredible for our lives. And yeah, I just didn't really know the urgency. I didn't sense the urgency of anything at all until after that I realized, wow, I really, really could have died. I should have died. I'm running straight towards this balcony, about to jump off, because I just had to, in order to end the insanity that I was experiencing, which I truly believed was an experience in hell, by the way. So yeah, with that pretty much just wraps up the story. I just want to thank you for actually sitting through this and listening to this, if you did. Well, I don't even know if this is going to reach anyone, but like, even if it reaches this one person and it makes someone decide to not do drugs, that is a win in my book. That is honestly so good. Huge W. And just another cool little fun fact, just another thing that makes this all just a big god happening, in my opinion. I got in no legal trouble. I did not get fined. I did not get put on a criminal record. I simply was just free to leave the hospital after the police and ambulance were called on me. Like, there was no consequences for this. And I thank God just so much for that. And honestly, I might even make more of these in the future. I got so many just stories of God that have happened afterward, before. Like, I like playing video games. I like yapping about Jesus. Why not just incorporate the two, you know? So yeah. Thank you for watching once again, and ciao.